What's going on, guys? Due to a certain incident, I've had to temporarily relocate. Welcome to my humble abode. This place may not look like much, but I think it will suit me well. Any place can come off as odd, but it might end up being the perfect place you're looking for. This place could suit me like bread and butter, which is something I cannot say about Xbox because they've been looking for the butter for over a decade and haven't found it yet. This is a video game, and like all other video games, we need to ask what console is it for. Holy crap! Video games can be great things, but they need to be treated properly. I mean, if someone sees your game in a box like this, they're gonna leave the state. While the video game is the most important factor of a video game, I feel like other factors are just as important. A game can be good, but if it isn't marketed well, no one's gonna care. I bet there's some great titles in the Sega Master System's lineup, but no one's gonna want to buy these games when they're surrounded by homework. Video games need to have good box art to sell well. It's simple science. And most game companies get it right for the most part, but what about the few that didn't? Atari, you fun little bitch. Here's 3 different boxes. Try to guess which one's an Atari game. Screw you, bitch, they're all in television games. The 70s was a weird stage in gaming. Home video game consoles were a new thing, and there wasn't really a previous console to succeed, which meant everything in the terms of video gaming was quite new. Because it wasn't something to follow, no one knew what the standard was. Atari was a good example of that. Atari did not have a standard with their video game packaging. If you ever got settled with one, they changed it. This made telling what was an Atari game and what wasn't rather difficult. The fact that television games look so similar to Atari didn't help much. The ColecoVision, I feel, had enough difference in their box art to not be confused for Atari games, but even they had no standard for their box art. Some would say the name of the console it's for and a big eyesore in the bottom of the box. Most arcade release games for the ColecoVision had these. Others would have a full-blown logo, while others would just have plain text hidden somewhere on the box art. And that was one of the problems for these box arts. They couldn't decide whether to have a full-blown logo or just text. Some games would make the name of their console it's on as tiny as humanly possible. And at that point, why would you put the console name there at all? Something else to mention is the fact that the games came in cardboard boxes. These boxes were not meant to be kept and would be thrown away, leaving you with just a cartridge. This creates a whole new problem of its own. Telling the game cartridges apart, the Atari Intellivision and the ColecoVision have almost identical looking cartridges. And the cartridges didn't have a standard either, making it so much harder to keep track of which console they go for. Most of them would barely show the name of the console it's for. And this makes getting the game for the right system incredibly hard, especially when it's used. Most used games like these would have just the cartridge and nothing else. What a great way to confuse the grandmas in the store. The third generation is where things started to get standardized, but not entirely. The NES started things out with the so-called black box template. It was basic, but consistent. Eventually they switched on to full art for their games, but they didn't have standardized branding. The logo would be in a different place each time, making it a little confusing, but considering that most of the games for the NES were exclusive to their platform, it wasn't too bad. Later down the line, the boxes got standardized branding with the small red header on the top. The NES cartridges were easily distinguishable to any other console games, so telling them apart was pretty easy. The cartridges have a big square of art on them with the logo underneath. The header is pretty small though, but it's still readable. The Sega Master System looked like trash, but it was standardized. Not to mention the fact that the games came in plastic cases, which made storing your games so much easier. These plastic cases were designed for keeping the games inside, so that means they wouldn't get thrown away as much as cardboard boxes, which made storing and reselling these games highly convenient. However, that meant Sega didn't design the cartridges, they just have text on them. Also, they have no header, which is understandable because it's in a plastic case most of the time, but why does the art extend out to the top then? The 4th generation was when things finally started to standardize across the board, unless you were Sega. The Super Nintendo was pretty standard with its box out throughout its life. The box itself looked like a jumbo of shapes though, plus this logo that everybody forgets about. The right side of the box has 16 dots, which is a little nod to the fact that the console is 16-bit. Shocking, huh? Anything can have its surprises. For example, this house came with this dresser leg. I think it looks pretty cool. How about this? Upon further inspection, this is a shotgun. The cartridges were basically NES cartridges, but horizontal. And the header somehow got even smaller. I didn't know that was physically possible. And with the Genesis, anything is physically possible. The second Genesis couldn't make up its mind about how their box art should look like. It started out looking like the Master System's homework design, but inverted. Very reminiscent of the NES boxes now that I think about it. The Genesis logo was on the bottom, but would change size and even position all the time. And sometimes the cases would have artwork surrounding the whole thing for some reason. The cartridges were once again in plastic cases, with the cartridges themselves looking very lively. but the cartridges were so different from one another that it was hard to tell which would work with a Genesis. EA games made the cartridges look entirely different, and the 32X games were their own thing. It's easy to get confused with the Genesis's packaging, especially when they changed the box's design halfway through, and later switched to cardboard boxes. All of the game console's boxes were mostly standardized from this point on, with a few redesigns here and there. The 6th generation onwards used DVD-like packaging, but most of them were very cheap. The cases would fall apart constantly. What do you mean the case would break if I hit it with a controller? There should have been a warning on the case for that. The GameCube, however, used much stronger cases. These were very much like DVD cases, but more durable and buff. The Xbox One cases had a tough barrier on the top holding the logo on it. The rest of the case was still fragile though. But who cares about that shit when I got this wonderful place to show you around? This is the dining table. The only food we have available right now are nails, but if you're daring, you can try fish food. This is the entertainment center, complete with non-stop NES fun. But if you're feeling less bitchy today, you can watch a movie from our bargain bin. Alright, let's pick out a movie from our bargain bin and see what we're gonna watch today. On second thought, I'm feeling more bitchy. Real men sleep in the dryer. And that's about it. Couldn't ask for more butter for my bread, honestly. But what if the bread's no good? Some game companies, specifically Xbox, are always being as confusing as possible. The 360 originally had packaging that looked like this. Pretty normal. But you see the problem? Yeah, it's this. What exactly does this mean? You may think that it's just a normal little thing that's on the side, like how this orb is here on the OG Xbox cases. But the thing is, not all cases had this. Some would just say live, and others wouldn't have it at all. And it wasn't a thing that shifted between the years. No, they were using all three designs simultaneously. All three of these games released in 2008 and have different text in the corner. And the Xbox One is even worse. They kept shifting up their case design all the time. They started out looking like this, then added this, then changed to this, then to this. They couldn't make up their damn mind. Not to mention that the 360 games that were re-released to work on Xbox One, they had different box art designs for their cases, and confused the hell out of people. Why was there a 360 re-release of Rayman Legends if there was already an Xbox One release? That's just gonna hurt people's brains and honestly makes this whole concept very stupid. When the Xbox Series X released in 2020, they acted like it was a part of the Xbox One. At that point, why make a new console? The cases now look like this, with a header telling you which Xbox consoles it works on. Like, why do this at all? You could have done the normal thing and released a new separate console and changed the box art design entirely. You didn't have to make this so confusing! And not all games followed this template. Mass Effect Legendary Edition got released in Xbox One packaging. This game released in 2021. Console companies just want to make everything as confusing as possible. And I think it's time we fix that. So, I've created a formula on what makes the perfect box art. First off, the game packaging has to be standardized. You can't keep jumbling it up throughout its life. Special event releases are the only exception. If the console has a rebranding like from the 360 to the 360S, it's okay to redesign your cases, but don't make them too different from the previous boxes. Don't switch from like a 3DO case to a hexagon. The case itself I think should be simple but functional. A DVD-like case would work, but don't make it too small or you'll have to sacrifice the quality of the art on the cover. You should also make your cases durable. Don't be like PS4 where they fall apart in an instant. Something like the GameCube's boxes would suffice perfectly. You should also make the disc branding match with the case's branding. I'm looking at you, Wii U. You should also not make the branding itself look too exotic, unless you got it thoroughly planned out. And last but not least, don't look like an Xbox One game. So video games don't always get good box art, but if you work hard and with my trusty formula, you can make bread guaranteed to beat the hell out of this piece of shit bread. We've been eating the same bread for over 1,000 years and I still prefer the nails.